Hiya, welcome to today's edition of Caddy's Corner. Today I am going to talk a little bit about learned helplessness. I don't really like the word abuse. Not that I think it's an inappropriate word, it doesn't have its meaning. I think that to say I was in an abusive relationship, or it was abusive this, or it was an abusive work environment, or a toxic abuse, oftentimes people, especially in battered women syndromes, they don't believe they're being abused because someone else is getting it worse than them. So it may be mental abuse. Well, he didn't hit me. Well, he hit me, but I didn't bleed. Well, I bled, but I took care of it myself. I didn't have to go to the hospital. And even if you don't know someone else who is having, usually there's someone else you know who has an advanced version of a worse. So it's like, well, they're in an abusive relationship. I'm not. So there's a learned helplessness, and honestly, if you want the whole story, go to the Wikipedia page of it. There's a lot of psychological studies, one done in '67 on dogs that I don't even want to talk about. But they call it an adversive conditions. So I'm going to refer to it as for that. So instead of using the word abuse, I'm going to say adversive. I think that's a better word. Better suits it. I think there's too much stigma around abuse, and then there almost immediately when I think about it, there's shame and guilt of not being smart enough or strong enough or recognizing it soon enough, or was it really abuse? And then you start to categorize everything as abuse, and it not always is. It's a lot of muddied water, and it's fraught with a lot of emotion, the word alone. So I'm always mindful when I use it anyway. But today, in order to talk about learned helplessness, it's very interestingly, it's called synchronicity when things start to appear in different places. People have been talking about it around me to some degree. There's been some mention of it in the YouTube video, people that I follow, multiple places. And then today when I looked up a specific thought I had, it landed right onto this, which was back talking about what other people were talking about. And one of the most interesting things I found is that now in modern psychology and experiments and science, they are discovering that actually the innate, or default, I should say, the default mindset of humans is helplessness. And that it's actually believing that you have control over your circumstances and can control the world, can control your matrix around you. That's the learned behavior. And it kind of makes sense actually, because we're raised by our parents for so long. We're so what's the word I'm looking for? Not help, I guess, weak. Our survival depends on being raised up to a certain age, which sometimes is 15, 16, 17, 18, and do you really even have it right then? But I know for me, there was a lot of times I was told, you can't choose. You can't choose what you want to do, when you want to eat, where you want to go. You don't know enough. You're not young enough. You're not old enough. You're too young. You're too young, so no. And then in the systems of schooling and dance class and this and that and at the pool and whatever, it was, there were so many rules around you, so you didn't have a lot of control. So why would you think, well, I'm 21 now, I've hit a certain age, and now I have all the control of all of my world? You certainly don't. And then, of course, there's the world around you that does control some of your life. And but what happens is once you have a specific set of data of I have no control, it breeds itself across it sort of fogs across other aspects of your life. So when you're in a situation at home where you don't have a lot of control, you'll let yourself be a little bit more manipulated and bullied at work, because your default is to not believe that you have the ability. But then there's an inner conflict that happens, because sometimes you see things, or you know better, or you've made the suggestion that then, someone else says it out loud. As a woman, oftentimes a man then just parrots exactly what I've said. And the bosses or the group goes, oh, well, let's do what Doug said. I'm like, I literally just said that out loud. And so then there's venom and rage and anger and frustration. And then sometimes you don't speak up at all, and there's shame for that. So we all have that friend who's insecure, who constantly is going down on themselves. Sometimes I found I'm an amateur photographer. I love taking pictures. And a friend of mine is a bartender, was leaning over the bar talking to me, and the candlelight was on her face, and the lighting behind her was very soft, and she was very happy about what she was talking about. She's such a beautiful woman anyway, but I was like, freeze, don't move. And I pulled out my phone to take a picture. And the minute she saw that I was going to photograph her, she went, and she said, I never take a good picture. And she believes she never takes a good picture because she never takes a good picture because she believes she doesn't never take a good picture. How that relates to helplessness is that the loop of the mindset, when someone always says, oh, I'm not going to, it's such, like, oh, Debbie Downer, oh, I might as well not try that because it's not going to work out. You're putting your inability to control it ahead of yourself. And then another synchronicity that's happened is the discussion about the 4-minute mile. Not run for like 30 years of runners. 4-minute mile, impossible. They decided it was physically impossible to do. A doctor said, F you, it can be done, and pushed himself past it. The minute he pushed himself past it, within the first year, 30 other people ran under a 4-minute mile. So there's something in our brains that if we believe that we can get out, we can get out. The analogy and visualization that started me on this search today and why I'm babbling about it was when there's an animal kept in a cage, and then not always, but at some points the cage door is opened and the animal doesn't leave. That's a part of what that study was in 67, to some degree, because I've put a lot of pressure on myself to figure out why. Make sense of why I didn't walk away from what was the word I was going to use? Adversive conditions before. Stay longer and stay harder, and sometimes even the cage door opened and I did not leave. There were opportunities for me to get out, to get healthier, to get better, to get stronger, to make more money, to work in industries that better suited me, and I didn't go. I didn't move. I stayed right where I was. No, I have to be here. I'm staying here. It wasn't always a lack of self-confidence. It was a patterned behavior. And as you practice anything, you practice your Tai Chi, you get better at it. Practice your music, you get better at it. So I'm reclaiming a lot of that and trying to choose action, choose control, choose to create the matrix around me that matters. And we have more control than we could ever imagine. When I set my mind to something, I'm a force of nature, get out of my way. But usually I'm setting my mind to something that someone else wants done for them. So last night I have a friend who works on Broadway as a musician, came into the bar last night, and he said to me, when'd you practice your bass? Have you practiced your bass? Because we talk about, I have this bass right over in the corner, and thanks for the loaner, Stephanie. And I was like, yeah, I haven't touched it. I'm going to this year. He goes, today, 5 minutes. Just do 5 minutes. Just pick it up and do it. I ended up doing 15 or 20. And with a joyful soul, I practiced my bass. Not going to get into the story right now, but there was a lot of pressure around practice for me with that instrument. And it was not good situations that came out of. I had a great time in my bands. There was a lot of rough stuff going on at the same time, so I have a kind of a negative, like, I'm never going to be good enough. I started when I was 30 playing the bass, which is now 20 years in. Like, if I'd been like focused and practicing 5 minutes a day for 20 years, how great would I be? But I didn't, and that's okay, because I'm doing it with joy now, and it's a celebration, and I sang along with it. It was easy. It was easy to sing along. I actually sang a song while I played the bass, which was kind of virtually impossible for me before, because it's the rhythm you play on the bass is not the melodic rhythm you sing. But now, because I've been singing more, it was easier. So I'm not helpless anymore when it comes to the bass. I'm not helpless anymore when it comes to my life. I'm making sense of a lot more things. And when I make sense of more things, the things that don't fit or suit me are a little brighter and shinier, and I have to figure out how I'm going to deal with them. I'm still working on a lot of fronts, but my hope for today is that you're mindful about being helpless. Be mindful that your brain, that's your default. That's the innate way that we are wired to believe that we don't have control. You do have control. You can choose exactly how to make your matrix work, and it may not happen overnight, and it may be a 10-year plan, but you can get there. So figure out the plan. You got to at least start there. And I'm working on that for myself. There's some stuff that I already have planned that I'm working on, but there's some stuff that I know I need to plan, and I'm a little bit of a loss right now of what those are and how to get there. But I feel confident that I will. And I'll leave you with that today. That's just the synchronicity of what things have been revealing themselves to me, and I wanted to share it with you because I think it's important. And it's not just people who are in adverse situations under circumstances like that. It's everybody. Everybody struggles to some degree. And even powerful, ego-filled, strong people are still having to navigate around the circumstances and the external stimuli of this world that tries to control us a lot. So be mindful, as always, right? I think I say that every video now. Thanks for joining me today in Caddyland. The question for the day, I guess, is there anywhere you're feeling helpless? And know that you're not. Know that you're not. Know that when there's a picture taken of you, when you're really happy, you're beautiful. Don't ever forget that. Please. When I first started these videos, I always wanted to have hair and makeup done. I always wanted to be ready to go. In fact, there was one that was just Phil. I wouldn't even let myself be on camera. When I went down to Florida, I just gave up on it because the hair was always all over the mess and like whatever. But I don't care anymore. I mean, sometimes I look back and I go, ooh, you look old and gross, and why can't you just take 5 minutes to like do your face? But it doesn't matter. I'm sharing myself with you. That's it. And I appreciate y'all watching. I'll tell you that much. It means a lot to me. I'm just sharing my world with you. That's all. So thanks for joining me in Caddyland. We'll do it again tomorrow. All right. Bye.